Hello everybody, welcome to another Making Monday Lovable video. Today's video is called What is a Scientist? And I wanted to share with you my view on what a scientist is, how I feel about it and my experience with it in general. First thing I wanted to say is that to me, personally, a scientist is basically every human being that's born on that planet. So all small babies, children, kids are already scientists. And then we grow up into whatever it is we grow up into. So that's the first thing I just wanted to set and share with you. Because usually when thinking about what a scientist is, I would think about it's somebody that does something related to science, a biologist, a chemist, a physicist, everything related to natural sciences. Mathematicians, that's also considered natural sciences. While engineers, again, are not considered scientists, but then there's social sciences as well. So everybody that does some kind of science, everybody that has some kind of degree, career, education related to science is a scientist. And in my case, I do fit some of these boxes. So I studied biology, I did a PhD, and now I have this high degree of officially being called a scientist. To me, while knowing that all this education I went through, also all the degrees that I got, and they qualify me officially as a scientist, I am aware of that, but to me these things are not really what makes a scientist truly. How to explain it? So on the way I learn a lot and know things, experience things that make me be considered a scientist. But then when I think about what these things actually are, so as a scientist, we question, we wonder, we ask certain types of hypotheses. We want to find out about a tiny little thing out there in nature. We are curious to learn about it, to investigate it, to find methods to get some kind of answer to the question that we have. If we don't find any answer or a confusing answer, we try a different way. We explore a different approach, maybe a different methodology, maybe a different question even, just to see if we get somewhere where a little bit of new truth can be revealed. So these are very typical things and skills and capabilities of scientists. And they are, in my opinion, just, trained throughout this scientific career. And ideally, they should be enhanced even more. They should be, they should be brought out from people even more. Because sometimes I found that there are certain ways in the science academic field that I have been in that are not really encouraging these things. Especially I've heard of cases where people in different positions, in different hierarchical positions wouldn't interact, wouldn't question, wouldn't consider each other, which is a huge loss sometimes, because when you are in a higher position, you might lose the connection to the, bench lab work, where people actually do the things and know sometimes even more than you, while you're a professor already, where you are out of the actual work patterns. Doesn't mean that as a professor you can still, be curious, think about it. But there is cases that I've heard of where different hypotheses were suggested, but they were pushed away just because there is only one thing that we want to go for and nothing else. And that's not the way science works. There's not only one truth in science, and there's never 100% truth in science. And this is also what I feel in society. There's a really wrong perception of of science, and sometimes almost dogmatic, like we say this and it's supposed to be like this and nothing else. Everything else is wrong, and this is the complete opposite of how science works. So that's a huge danger to me when I think about how science somehow is spread to the outside world, and that you have to believe it no matter what, that you can't question science. And that's really wrong, because the thing about science is to question all the time. If you don't question, if you don't ask as a scientist, you shouldn't be considered a scientist. And if anybody blames you of questioning something, they shouldn't be considered a proper scientist either. So that was just like a small excursion. But explaining all these things and getting back to the initial sentences that I said is that every human being born on this planet is already a scientist. And this is simply because if you're a small baby and you're growing up, you're constantly learning, you're constantly exploring the world. You are at a certain point, whenever you're developmentally ready for that, asking and questioning, you're observing, you're adapting, you constantly learn, and again, ask questions. And kids are curious. They are beyond what we as grown-ups sometimes have in capabilities of being curious, because they are just, exploring the world in a free and open and innocent way, without having any agenda, without having any, ideally, because that's also a tricky part of society. So they have all these capabilities of a good scientist already within themselves. And then when going to kindergarten, school, society, and so on, so we are formed in a certain way, and certain things are put on us. Like, for example, in school, I guess we all went through it, like, okay, there is this one answer to that question and nothing else. And you're supposed to be, exactly correct. You can solve a math equation in a different way because somebody else told you in a different way. You are supposed to learn this way and that way only. And then this, it's this rigidity of certain types of systems kills creativity, kills curiosity, kills questioning, wondering, exploring the world. So when growing up somehow in society, many of us lose all these capabilities, and that are not only important for being a scientist, but they are essential to just be a human being and go through the world, explore situations, interactions with other people, at workplaces, to bring things forward, to innovate, to kind of, be the best person you can be with your capabilities and skills in this world, to make it a better place. Sometimes you need to get out of your oftentimes you need to get out of your comfort zone, out of your skill zone, to expand and explore. And if that's restricted, everything else is restricted, like the development of potentially huge inventions is restricted. So yeah, these are basically my thoughts on what a scientist is, and why it is important to see it as something holistic. Not only, okay, you have this degree, so you're considered a scientist, everybody else is not. I've met people that have no scientific degrees and are some of the most curious and science-minded people I've ever met, more so than some scientists. So yeah, this is it, I think, for today. I would actually really love to hear what you think about this, and what you have experienced, and what your feelings and thoughts about this are. So I wish you a great Monday and a happy new week, and see you next week. Bye bye.